Republican efforts to overhaul the United States tax system took a major step forward today, with Senate Republicans unveiling their tax plan. This comes after the House version of the bill was approved by committee earlier today. The Senate plan cuts a corporate tax rate from 35% to 20%. It eliminates the state and local deductions and limits who pays the estate tax. GOP Senate leaders say they're optimistic about getting it passed by the end of the year.
Okay, look. This is a very, very important thing. We haven't implemented the code in over 30 years. And it's apparent this country is lagging behind a lot of other countries. And our foreign economics are a disaster in comparison to what they can be. And we're about to change that. We hope we can do this on a bipartisan basis. We hope we can get our Democrat colleagues to come with us. Whether they do or not, we're going to go ahead and change this and get this country moving again. With that, I'll just turn to the majority leader.
Yeah, let me just again congratulate Chairman Hatch and the members of the Finance Committee and the administration as well, who's represented here today. We've worked together closely to get to this point. In 30 years, America's ready for tax reform again, to get growing again, like we know this code will do, to get new jobs and opportunity, and a significant tax relief for the middle class.
If I could add one other thing, we're very happy to have this administration to work with. They're doing a great job. Secretary Mnuchin is doing a great job, and Mr. Cohen has been a tremendous asset to us, and they're willing to dive in and work on a bipartisan basis and get this done. The President's willing to as well, so we'll turn the time over to you, Steve.
Thank you. Congratulations to the committee. We've very much appreciated the opportunity to work with you all year. It's a great day in moving in the right direction for middle-income tax cuts and making our businesses competitive. And I'd also just like to acknowledge the progress that the House made as well today. We look forward to getting this to the President, get signed in December.
Mr. Leader, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your great leadership on getting us to this great point today. It's another really important step progress in bringing real tax reform to the American people. So thank you, and we still have a lot more work, but we're really excited.
Libby Casey is a reporter for the Washington Post, joins us now. So, Libby, the Senate plan has some differences from the House plan. Where are Senate Republicans? Where are their priorities when it comes to taxes?
Well, you know, there's been a lot of talk about lowering the corporate tax rate, and the Washington Post has learned that Republicans in the Senate want to delay this cut in the corporate tax rate till 2019 because that would make the tax bill cost a lot less. It would mean a lot of savings. But that's raised concerns about just how businesses would respond. Would they delay investing strategies? Would they delay moving to the U.S.? So Republicans think they have a workaround for that, but it is raising some concerns in the corporate community. And then there's the question of just how far this bill will go when it comes to things like the child tax credit, something that Marco Rubio says he wants to see increased over what the House bill proposed. But we may see some of the same divisions and questions on the Republican side in the Senate, just like we do see in the House, because even as the House has been pulling some Republicans on board, they've also been losing some people. Like we saw Darrell Issa, a Republican of California, say he wants to see this state and local tax deduction issue dealt with. He doesn't want people to lose that deduction. He comes from California, a wealthy area, and he's very concerned where there are high local taxes, and he's concerned that that will hurt his constituents. Yeah. So it's a delicate balance.
Libby, I wanted to ask you about that, eliminating the state and local tax deduction. How do you see that making its way through the Senate?
You know, it may be a tougher sell in the House because the House has these very niche districts, and a lot more House Republicans may represent some of those wealthy districts. You're not going to see as much crossover of states like New York that would be really hard hit. Well, they're represented by Democratic senators. Same with Virginia, Democratic senators. And so Democrats obviously aren't really part of this structuring process. So it's those House Republicans that may be hearing from their local constituents, hey, this is going to hurt, because they may be seeing that more right in their backyard.
And Libby, you mentioned Democrats. The president's been trying to woo those Senate Democrats. Yeah. And according to the Wall Street Journal, the president told lawmakers in a call about the Senate bill that you're going to like it a whole lot more. Do we know where the president stands on these two versions of the tax bill?
Well, that is raising some frustrations among Republicans because they don't want to see bad press on the House version of the bill. Because while these two bills will be different, the American people aren't necessarily going to parse out, what one side of the Capitol building is doing versus the other. And so they want to see a totally robust, supportive message from the president. So that has raised some concerns. And he told these Democrats, according to reporting, that the House bill would hurt the wealthy like him, and that's also not a message that Republicans really want to see. So, you know, the president's in Asia, but he still has a very powerful voice here, especially when he picks up the phone and has those sorts of calls.
How likely is he to be successful with wooing these Democrats?
Well, I mean, if we're getting the contours of this tax plan that the Senate Republicans are putting out, not very likely, because there's just not things in there that are going to bring them over. Nancy Pelosi, the top Democrat in the House today, I want to get this language right. She said that this latest tax bill appears to be an act of desperation. So Democrats are trying to stay unified and send signals that they don't like what they see so far.
Speaking of what they not liking what they see, the Congressional Budget Office found that the House plan would actually raise the deficit by $1.7 trillion. This is over the next 10 years. How do you think that's going to play into this?
Yeah, it's so fascinating because you have a lot of conservative Republicans who campaigned on bringing down that debt. And so they are trying to look for some more pay-fors. One proposal comes from Alaska. Republicans there say drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge would help bring in some revenue. That is very controversial. It is near and dear to environmentalists' hearts. So they are loath to see that on the table. And this has been something that's been fought over for decades. But you're going to see Republicans trying to find some more of these pay-fors. Things like delaying the corporate tax break. But it does go counter to that philosophy of what Republicans had said they wanted to see at the outset.
So we've got this House bill, Libby, we've got this Senate bill. Where does this all go from here?
Well, we have to see the exact implications of what the Senate bill does, and we'll find out more and more about as the number crunchers tell us, you know, what this would really mean for American families. A lot of this may come down to how the American people interpret it. You know, we just did a recent poll at the Washington Post, and of over 1,000 people surveyed, only 5 people used the word cut to talk about the president's tax plan. That's the word that came to their minds. That's it, only 5 people. So a lot of this may come down to selling it and seeing how Americans feel about it. We did see in this Virginia race just this week that Obamacare is suddenly becoming a sales point for Democrats, no longer a weight that's been dragging them down. And one thing that Senate Republicans may do here in this bill is they may try to repeal the mandate that everyone have health care. We're not really sure that's going to play out politically, because a couple of years ago that would have been a big selling point, and now we're not so sure because people seem to be taking more and more to Obamacare.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see those numbers on health care and how interested folks were about that. Before you go, I want to ask you, though, about these retirements. Another House Republican announced that he's retiring in 2008. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Bob Goodlatte. He says he's not going to seek re-election. There are 2 others also announced their retirements yesterday. What's causing their exits?
Part of the issue is a self-created problem by Republicans. They have a limit on how many terms a member of the GOP can serve as chairman of a committee. Democrats don't have that internal rule. And so guys like Congressman Goodlatte are looking at losing a really powerful chairmanship. Now, he's been the chair of a couple different committees, but he's saying it's time to step down. And we are seeing that among, as you mentioned, a couple of other chairmen. A lot of this may be impacted by the attacks from the right. And Bob Goodlatte is a very conservative Republican, but even he may not be safe from the Steve Bannon push of trying to primary or force members to sort of talk more about issues they care about. And even though Bob Goodlatte's a big supporter of President Trump, and his region of Virginia voted overwhelmingly for the Republican in the big governor's race this week, even he, because he's been in Washington for a long time, could get some fights from inside his district. So he's in his 60s. He's been in Congress a long time, and he says it's time for me to step down. Or not step down. Let's be clear. He's not going to run again. Right. We have seen a couple of them step down, which was really surprising. But the thing we're hearing now is just, I'm not going to run again. It does clear the decks, though, Rena, for other members of the GOP to say, okay, it's time for me to step up and I'm going to run, especially in his district, which is reliably Republican. We'll see what kind of Republican services as a candidate there.
Yeah, that's a good point. It certainly makes the way for other folks to come in. Libby Casey, thank you so much for joining us, Libby.
Thank you. Thanks so much.